What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is AJ and in this video I'm going to answer a question I saw coming up a lot when it came to cigar storage, and that is, should you keep them as you receive them from the cigar shop? Whether it's a new or sealed box or Tubos, and what about the wrapper? Should you keep it on or off? And side note, it's not plastic, it's cellophane. And this is going to be a part of an upcoming series that I'm going to call The Perfect Smoke. I'm going to cover all of the main topics for storing your cigars and fine-tuning them to make sure that they burn perfect for you every time. It's too complicated and in-depth to try to cover everything in one video, but by hitting it in a series of videos, I'll be able to cover all these topics and break things down a lot easier in a more digestible format. And now look, I'm not some cigar expert, okay? I've only been smoking cigars for about 2 years. But what I have done is a ton of research on cigars and a ton of experimenting with my own cigars to get them fine-tuned to be smoking perfectly. And if nothing else, it's my excuse to have that daily cigar because I'm doing research. With that said, the more you dig into cigars, you'll see things get very subjective. Things like temperature and humidity, for the most part, people agree on them, but then everybody's got their own preferences and their own situation for their specific environment. So what's the best condition to keep your cigars in your humidor? Now, as I briefly mentioned in the intro, your options are going to boil down to, number one, keeping them in a sealed box. Number two, if they came in Tubos, you would use the Tubo. And number three, the Cellophane On. And number four, Cellophane Off naked cigars. And each method also has its uses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out how each method will affect your cigars, the good, the bad, and some well-known facts that you need to know about each method. And once you get an understanding of this, you'll know exactly what's right for your cigars at the moment. What's most important, however, is storing your cigars in a proper humidified environment. I call it the KISS method, otherwise known in the community as a Tupperdor. I've already done a couple videos on it before. There'll be a link somewhere for you to watch it after you finish this video. Okay, so getting your hands on a brand new sealed cigar box is really something special. The entire cigar experience is elevated with this beautifully crafted box. As you go to make your pick from all the cigars inside of there, it makes a great gift too, and that's just a hint for anyone watching this and feeling generous. So let's get into some of the pros when it comes to boxes. Most boxes are well crafted, molded, and have amazing artwork, and you may want to collect and repurpose them down the line. It's also a rewarding experience. You know, keeping that box sealed for such a long time, and when you finally go to crack it open and have a smoke, it's almost guaranteed to be a memorable moment. Boxes are usually cedar lined, so cigars have been stored in cedar forever, and it just does wonders for the cigar's flavor and aroma. Unfortunately though, these days, not all cigar boxes have cedar in them, so keep that in mind. Production dates are usually on the box as well. If not, it's nice to have a box that you can write down, you know, the date that you purchased the box if you're gonna store it away for whenever you decide to have that special smoke. And my favorite part when it comes to cigars is the aroma. It's like when you get a new car and it has that new car smell. It lasts for a few weeks, but the more you drive it, it kind of just, you know, goes away and loses that scent. But keeping cigars in their original box, even as you smoke through them, they get to keep that strong aroma much longer, all the way until you finish that last cigar. Now, some cons when it comes to boxes. The first obvious one is they take up a lot of space. Depending on your storage situation, this could be a problem. And also, sealed cigar boxes, even though they're sealed, are not meant for storage. They need to go in a humidor or Tupperdor regardless. Otherwise, the box and the wood will absorb all the humidity from your cigars and dry them out. Which leads me to the last note, is you never know what condition the cigars are in inside the box. So unless you're storing your cigars for like 6 months or more, your cigars in there could be very humid or very dry, and you would not know unless you cracked it open to check. In fact, one of the last boxes that I ordered was a LFD 2023 football box, and when I went to go open it, the cigars in there were very dry. Even the little Boveda pack that was inside the box was completely dried up. And you would know this because when you pick up a cigar, you kind of hold it to your ear and give it a squish test. So you squeeze the cigar close to your ear and you can hear the tobacco crunching in there. Personally, I always open and check every box of cigar I order. And if I have the space in my humidor, I'll definitely keep them in their original box. Next up, we've got Tubos. Tubos are great if you're taking your cigar on the go, whether that's to the beach, to the golf course, or just traveling. Having a Tubo cigar always comes in clutch. Now, when it comes to storing cigars in Tubos, here are some of the pros. Cedar and cigars just go great together, and Tubos typically come with a strip of cedar lined on the inside. It's good to have that cedar strip in there, especially because the tubes are usually made out of aluminum. Tubes are also like capsules, so they create a barrier between the cigar and the environment, which also means that cigars are going to age a bit slower and it won't mix or get influenced by the other flavors of the cigars in your humidor. Now, some downsides when it comes to storing your cigars in Tubos. There's always give and take, and that tight seal, it can be a good thing, it can also be a bad thing. Humidity just takes much longer to pass through in and out of the tube. And because of that seal, one of the biggest issues with Tubos is that cigars can mold in them pretty easily. And mold only grows when humidity is high, but also temperature is too high. So if a Tubo cigar ends up in this kind of situation, combine that with being a tight seal, and you just got a recipe for mold. And unfortunately, this is just really common with Tubo cigars. I actually bought a box of Don Carlos Aniversarios, I think they're called. Well, anyway, they didn't have regular boxes. They only had them in the Tubos, and I really didn't want to miss out, and I wanted them, so I bought it anyway. And then as soon as I checked the Tubos, of course, there was some surface mold on them. Wasn't a big deal. I was able to just wipe the mold off and just keep it going. So it's not something you want to see. With all of that, a common thing to do with Tubos is to just remove the cap, even if you store them in your humidor. That way, humidity can pass through much easier. Personally, I don't store them in the tubes anymore at all, especially after seeing some mold on some cigars. And pretty much every time I pick up a Tubo cigar, it's usually, too high humidity for me. But what I will do is remove the cigar and the cedar sleeve completely, and I'll store them that way. Just like you see here with these Don Carlos cigars, I'll just take them, I'll wrap the cedar around and put them in a cellophane. And that leads us to the cellophane, and should you keep it on? 99% of cigars are going to come in a cellophane. It's a porous material that's breathable, so cigars acclimate to humidity just fine. So what are some benefits to keeping the cellophane on? For one, it protects cigars. Cigars are extremely delicate, and one wrong move is going to cause some damage. So the cellophane is extremely useful. This is subjective, but some would say it ages better because it creates a barrier around the cigar, trapping those oils and aromas from escaping. And of course, because the cellophane is breathable, the humidity passing in and out is never an issue. The cool thing about keeping cellophane on a cigars is you get to see when a cigar has been aging for a long time. That cellophane will change color, it'll turn dark and yellow, and you'll see all those oils and age on the wrapper. Even just having cellophane provides some kind of barrier from other cigars in your humidor from mixing and influencing each other's flavor. Some of the best blenders and cigar makers in the world recommend keeping at least the cellophane on to minimize this, so as to not allow flavors from other cigars to get fused and mixed up over time as they sit together in your humidor. Or at least the cellophane will reduce and minimize this effect. Now hold on, what are some downsides to having the cellophane on? For one, they're slower aging. Like I mentioned, the cellophane does provide some barrier. It's just a well-known fact that the cigar aging process will be a lot slower with the cellophane than without. If you had two of the same cigars and stored them differently with cellophane, then you'll see this. For aging, it's probably best to keep it on anyway. And it maintains humidity. Now, this is a double-edged sword because it's a good thing that it maintains humidity, except when the humidity in the cigar is too high before it goes into your humidor. And what happens is humidity will take a very long time to come down to a good smokable level. For me, all of my cigars are always in cellophane. Even if they don't come with cellophane, I'll eventually put them in cellophane as well. I just love the idea of trapping those oils and aromas in the cigar and letting it age and marinate slowly. But there's one caveat here that I kind of hinted at, and that's when the cigar is too wet, which leads to the next condition, and that's keeping the cellophane off. Now keep in mind, when the cellophane is off and the cigar is just naked, it's going to acclimate to the humidity of the environment much quicker. And that's important to know because you can use this to adjust the humidity of your cigars to raise it up if you need to, or bring that humidity down. Now, some things to consider when it comes to storing cigars without any cellophane. As I mentioned before, every other condition has at least some kind of barrier around the cigar, whether it's a box or a tubo or even the cellophane. But without any of that, those cigars just laying right next to each other, flavors are going to mix and exchange with other cigars in your humidor. There's also some exposure risk. Without cellophane leaves cigars exposed and unprotected. So probably the worst situation I can imagine is if mold started growing on some cigars, and it would be able to spread to those cigars that don't have cellophane much quicker. Also, if you ended up with an unlucky cigar that had tobacco beetles in it, it can easily spread to cigars with or without cellophane, but at least the cellophane will keep some kind of trace. Still be able to see if it chewed through the cellophane much easier. Personally, I take off the cellophane on my cigars for two purposes only, and that is when I want to bring down the humidity of new cigars before I put them in my humidor, and also when I want to dry box a cigar if it needs it before I want to smoke it. Actually, dry boxing a cigar is a great hack that every cigar aficionado should be using if they want to have a flawless burn. And that's going to be the next video in this series. If it's uploaded by now, that video will be right here. And before you go, please subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Leave a like, comment. I appreciate you, and thank you for watching.